Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on Sikkim365.com. Taking a look at various headline stories in and out of college football, but things that we might not get to in our usual discussion. So we highlighted here in this segment. We were talking about the Heisman Trophy earlier. Smokey's a Heisman voter, and Max Olson is too, and neither one of you have any idea who you're voting for at this point in time.
I don't. I know there's a list, and there could be somebody right now that might be 5, 6, or 7 on my list that I still might put 1 or 2. It's just been one of those years, and no one yet has, to me, just grabbed it. I know Bryce Young in Alabama has been good. I'm not so sure Jordan Davis at Georgia, who they continue to beat people up. Who knows? We got the really meat of the schedule with some ways games coming up, and I'll wait till they're all over.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, his little push is obviously over after the Baylor game. He will not win a Heisman despite, having a little window, it looked like, where he could maybe play, a little over half the season and perhaps win it. But that is definitely off the table after last weekend. So I've looked around, and various sites have various, odds, and some of them have it updated. So I'm just going with the most recent update that I could find. And this was kind of an accumulation. But C.J. Stroud is looked at right now as possibly the favorite to win the award. I mean, Bryce Young as well would be in that mix, and I would say, kind of looking around, it seems like those two are kind of the two favorites in the clubhouse right now. C.J. Stroud, quarterback at Ohio State, Bryce Young, quarterback at Alabama. There's also, of course, Kenneth Walker at Michigan State. And then you get into the Matt Corrals, the Kenny Pickett's. Jordan Davis is, getting a little bit of love, but obviously it's going to be very hard for him to win the award. And then after that, man, it's just names. I mean, it's very odd how there's just not that guy. There's not a Trevor Lawrence. There's not a Vince Young even. There's not anybody. And I know Vince didn't win the Heisman, but you know what I'm saying. There's years where there's 3 or 4 guys you could say are deserving. This year, Kenneth Walker would be deserving, and sure, Stroud, Young, but I'm not into this race at all right now. There's just nothing buzzworthy really.
If I had a vote, I would vote for, and maybe I'm a rule breaker, but I would vote for Jordan. Jordan Davis is the best player I've seen all year, consistently from week 1 to now. Everybody else you mentioned, C.J. Stroud had the game against Oregon. They didn't play well. Kenneth Walker's probably would be my second vote because he seems to have been the most consistent. But Bryce Young's had a couple of games where you're like, okay, well, he's good, but he didn't have great games. And, I know that not everybody, Robert Griffin's year, they didn't have great. They lost 3 games that year. 2 of them were straight up blowouts, so he didn't play well. And as a matter of fact, he didn't really play well against Kansas until the end of the game where he,
but that second half.
But so it's not about playing every single game well, but if I had to, if the tiebreaker this year was who's the best player, I think the guy who's played every single game well this year is Jordan Davis, but he's a defensive tackle, and I realize that, I might as well try to catch a star.
Ohio State's about to play Michigan State. So
that'll eliminate one of those guys.
That's going to at least change the lineup in some particular way. Jordan Davis has been on my radar from the beginning. I said that on a couple of different podcasts that I've been a part of or shows. Yeah, last week when I was on the station at Oklahoma, 2 or 3 of them, they asked about, is it too early, or has he played enough? And I was like, no, if he goes out and does another thing, it's not, because no one is just like, we'll find out a lot with that Michigan, and both of them might play well. Who knows? The C.J. Stroud, I saw him against Nebraska. They didn't just blow them out, and at times they were a little bit on edge, but he threw for 400 yards in that game. And it's kind of hard to imagine when it's 26-17. He did throw 2 picks. Their defense is pretty good. But right now, I have not made up my mind that I might not for another couple of weeks. We'll see.
Yeah, it looks like it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Kenneth Walker, and then a Jordan Davis or a Matt Corral potentially. But that's pretty much your list.
Yeah.
At this point, hard to see anybody else really sneaking into that. I know Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati gets a little bit of love, or Kenny Pickett even, but it doesn't appear like they've got much of a shot. But yeah, I don't know. When C.J. Stroud's a good player, and Kenneth Walker, you can't argue at all with what he's doing. But Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud both, they don't just strike. For some reason, they don't strike me the way that some of the other quarterback candidates have over the last few years. I'm just not totally all in like I was with a Kyler Murray or any of those guys. So yeah, it's just kind of a 4 to 5 man race right now. The Heisman Trophy odds, and we'll see, like you said, obviously how that will shake out over the next couple of weeks. And this Saturday, Stroud and Walker going toe-to-toe. Justin Verlander, I think we maybe mentioned this in passing on the show. I'm not sure yesterday, but he did agree to re-sign with the Astros as baseball free agency gets into full swing. He had rejected a qualifying offer. Then his brother came out and said that he had agreed to a deal to stick with the Houston Astros. He's going to be coming back from Tommy John surgery. And the Astros obviously have a lot of question marks right now. I mean, what's going to happen with, a Carlos Correa, for example? But, Paul, your thoughts on Verlander and him coming back to Houston?
I think that's good for Houston. I think that it's probably the best thing for Verlander, and that he's coming off, Tommy John. I think he'll probably be fine. His work ethic is second to none, and he's really embraced being an Astro. So I think it's good, because, look, if you're Verlander, are you going to go to the Yankees? Are you going to go to the Red Sox? Are you going to go to a team like that? And your best, if you're going to title chase, it's not like the Astros are going to all of a sudden be bad. Now, they're going to lose Carlos Correa. I mean, that's probably going to happen. But, they still have Altuve. They still have Brantley. They still have a lot of those guys. And, they still have Yuli Gurriel. So, yeah, I mean, to be the front of that rotation that was in the World Series without their true frontline starters, yeah, shoot, I'd go back if I were Verlander. You don't have much time left in the league anyway. Might as well go do it at some place you can win and you like.
Agreed. So I'm very curious to see where some of these names land. Freddie Freeman from the Braves, Corey Seager, the Dodgers, and also Carlos Correa, the headliners for this class, among some others. But is there anybody in particular that you're kind of eyeing as far as the big free agent move to come? Because those are three big
Correa,
names. Well, yeah, but I mean, is he the one that you're looking at more than any other, or there?
Freddie Freeman.
I think the three big shortstops, or 4 big shortstops, because it's Marcus Semien might be a second baseman, but Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Trevor Story, and Corey Seager. Yeah. How that market shakes out and how it shakes out before the lockout will be really interesting, because there's probably going to be a lockout. They're running out of time to not have a lockout. It doesn't mean we're going to have canceled games, but right now it looks like there's going to be a lockout. So unlike years past where the owners are kicking the can down the road, everybody wants to have their contract signed, players and owners, because they don't want whatever happens after the lockout to make them look bad.
But if you're the owners, would you want? You're going to end up paying Carlos Correa $30 million or whatever it is a year, whatever. He is a tremendous young player. I can't imagine him not playing in Houston, but Springer's not in Houston anymore, and neither are the pitchers they've had that helped them win a World Series.
Well, all signs have pointed to him leaving all year long.
Yeah,
I mean, all year there's been talk about him leaving, and maybe he surprises people and ends up back in Houston, but it sure does seem like it was kind of a farewell tour for him in some ways. So Correa, the shortstops, as you mentioned, it's going to be fun. But in terms of that lockout, they have until 11:59 Eastern time on December the 1st to try and get a new agreement in place. So we're looking at less than 2 weeks away now at this point.
Yeah.
And they talk about the hot stove in baseball. Well, they described the stove as ice cold right now in terms of coming to an agreement. So it does look like we are headed full force for a lockout in Major League Baseball, which is exactly what that sport needs. That's exactly what Major League Baseball needs.
Yeah, they've never had one of those before.
And their commissioner certainly seems like a guy
what an
who
idiot.
is well equipped to handle a work stoppage.
But he has battered the players. He has been great for the owners. Yeah,
great for the owners. Yeah.
I mean, that's why there's an issue. Yep.
Yay. Henry Ruggs. It has been a couple weeks since that horrific story involving Henry Ruggs and the car crash that killed a young woman and her pet dog. That was just a terrible, terrible story. Hasn't been a whole lot to really report on that, but apparently Las Vegas judge Susan Backham ordered Henry Ruggs to appear in court next week. She did this yesterday because he missed an alcohol test. So he was supposed to take an alcohol test. He's on house arrest. He's awaiting a preliminary hearing on 2 felony charges, driving under the influence, causing death or serious injury, and 2 felony charges of reckless driving and a misdemeanor weapons charge. We'd gone over the details about how fast he was driving earlier this month and what happened with that crash, but he is subject to 4 times a day alcohol testing.
Yeah, that was a smart move by them.
Yeah, and he could be back in jail as a result of that missed test. He's been ordered to not drink any alcohol, and so he will be in court next Monday. He's under an electric monitoring system right now, and as I mentioned, the testing that he's going through each day. So we will see what happens with Henry Ruggs, but he's not going to go to court and see if they don't throw him in jail for missing an alcohol test. So not the smartest move.
I wonder if he tried to bribe somebody like Lyle Collins did.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
not
know.
in that. That's a different issue. This right here is his life is not over, but
it's pretty close.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure his best bet is to once they get all the proper things, evidence, and all that gets ruled on, so he gets the fairest result possible. But his best bet is to go to the prosecutor and go, what do you want me to say?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and certainly was a lot of talk last week. For the soccer fans out there, Premier League watchers, there's a little bit of talk about where the Premier League would end up with its TV rights. Out there on the horizon, but NBC and Telemundo have reached a 6-year extension with the Premier League. $2.7 billion, which is a big jump up from what NBC was paying the last time around. The U.S. rights were up for grabs, and there were several networks that, if you read the rags, we were interested. I mean, basically every network was mentioned as having some interest, but when it boiled down to it, there was only really 3 legitimate candidates who were in the running for it. And there was even talk about splitting the packages up and having Premier League on different networks. But ultimately, 6-year extension with NBC Sports and a big pay raise for the Premier League, $2.7 billion. And I like watching it from time to time. I will not pretend to be a diehard like a Jack is, but I do enjoy just the kind of different feel of it versus American sports.
I like turning it on sometimes just because when you have 2 massive teams with huge fan bases there, I love watching. Just the atmosphere alone to me is worth it to watch for a little bit. Just the tension and everything that goes on. One of the other big things that came out of this, Craig, was that they're not going to put games that are scheduled for cable onto Peacock. So if they're scheduled to be on cable, there's nothing that's going to take them off of cable aside from an outage or something like that. But that was a big deal for a lot of people because they didn't want to sign up for Peacock. Just to watch, one game every 6 months. That's
understandable. I've seen a lot more complaints here as of late of, I forget what franchise it was. I think it was Star Trek. Star Trek was on I think it was on Netflix, right?
Paramount,
and now it's going to Paramount Plus, and so it's going to be exclusive to Paramount Plus. And I saw random Star Trek fans arguing, we have to pay for another streaming service, and yeah, that is a problem that we're running into. How many different streaming services can you possibly have to watch your favorite shows? But yeah, it's getting kind of crazy. But
JG with a chat on that. He goes, Arsenal against Man U and Chelsea versus Liverpool. Let's blank and go.
Let's go.
Thanks, JG.
Let's go. Right. Yeah, I love big time Premier League soccer. It just feels special. It really does. Paul, this will be interesting. WNBA has announced a new playoff format. Moving forward, they are abolishing the single elimination games and buys for top-seeded teams. The Board of Governors voted to change that. That will begin with the 2022 postseason. So now there will be 3 rounds of series play using a 3-3-5 format. They've been using the previous format for about the last 5 seasons or so. So, yep, they're going with a different best-of-3 series, 1 versus 8, 4 versus 5, etc., and changing up the hosting, all that stuff.
Does it make me look terrible that I didn't know how they did the playoffs in the first place?
Oh, you're just so.
You're the one that texted me
denial with your love for the WNBA.
You texted me yesterday and said the women's basketball tournament's going to 68 teams. So
I did tell you that.
You're a silent assassin.
I did tell you that because I think it's a bad idea. But
they did that because of last year's issues.
Debacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So now each team will be seeded by their season record, and it'll actually add more playoff games. So for the women's basketball fans out there, there's some news for you. And as you mentioned yesterday, it was announced as well, the NCAA women's basketball tournament will expand to 68 teams to match the men's side of things. Now tonight in college football, Louisville and Duke coming up at 6:30. Cardinals are 5-5. And there's a lot of Heisman buzz around Louisville earlier in the year, but that kind of died off. But Duke 3-7, That will be in Durham. So Louisville and Duke coming up later on tonight at 6:30. In the NFL, it will be the Patriots 6-4 at the 4-5 Atlanta Falcons. That starts at 7:20. Of course, Atlanta fresh off the butt whooping thanks to the Dallas Cowboys. So Patriots and Falcons later on tonight. Thursday Night Football.
Patriots kind of seem like you say that because you have Belichick, but they've had a couple of stinkers, but they do seem like they're trying to get that thing together just in time for what's November, December.
They're trending in the right direction long term.
Yeah.
And that they hit on 3 draft picks already. It looks like the Mac Jones looks like he's going to be a steady quarterback, and Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris in the backfield for a couple years to come. I like what they're doing. They need to get some maybe playmakers on the outside, but shoot, it's all worked.
Yep. So a couple games to watch tonight, and I'll close it out with this because I won't have another one of these for about 5 days or so. But Shaquille O'Neal has now joined on as an executive producer for a documentary short called The Queen of Basketball. It is about Lucy Harris, who was the first female basketball player to be officially drafted by the NBA. I don't know about how many people probably know that story. She won 3 national titles at Delta State in Mississippi.
I remember Delta State back in the 70s, I believe.
She funded her schooling through academic scholarships and work-study programs because athletic scholarships weren't available to women back in the 1970s when she played. She won a silver in the 76 Montreal Olympics. She was the first woman to score a basket in Olympic history, and she was selected by the New Orleans Jazz in the 7th round of the 77 NBA draft, but ended up not deciding to try out for the team, but still just a cool little honor. So that has already premiered. It was at the Tribeca Film Festival called The Queen of Basketball, so Shaq's joined that team, and I'm sure we'll see that being distributed more. But there you go, a little new sports film that'll be coming your way, or sports documentary that'll be coming your way soon, and there's a few things that are off the radar.
Thank you, Craig, very much. By the way, the Heisman Trophy, the ballots distributed on November 29th, voting deadline December 6th, the day after all the conference championship games. So that is more evidence between now and then. You mentioned Delta State. That reminds me of Old Dominion, Wayland Baptist, Immaculata, Stephen F. Austin, and even Louisiana Tech back in the day of women's basketball, which I know I kind of had it because I went to Stephen F. Austin. Those teams were all incredible elite teams back in the day before it turned into NCAA women's basketball. When we come back, he's the AFCA executive director. What are his thoughts? What are their thoughts on all the coaching changes? By the way, Petrino is out where is it? I just lost. Paul Petrino out at Idaho. The Vandals make a change. That's from Zach Barnett, Football Scoop. This.
Saban going there? Saban head and going to the Vandals?
Sick of 365 radio and